Good evening all, and welcome to the August edition of Glaucoma Australia's live Q&A webinar series, which is proudly brought to you by our long-standing and generous supporters at Glaucos. My name is Natasha Sickman, and I will be your host tonight. I am one of the senior orthoptist patient educators here at Glaucoma Australia, leading our organisation and the valuable services that we provide to our glaucoma community. Before I introduce you to our wonderful guest speaker tonight, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands, skies and seas in which we collectively gather for tonight's event, and I pay my respects to elders past and present, along with their emerging leaders. Our speaker tonight is Dr. Sau Kuan Janet Cheong, who is a clinical psychologist practising at Guide Dogs Queensland. She obtained her Bachelor in Psychology and her Master's in Clinical Psychology at the National University of Malaysia. She also graduated with her PhD from the Australian Catholic University. Her doctoral research investigated the self-concept of preadolescent children with cerebral palsy. Currently, her role at Guide Dogs Queensland supports clients and their families through different periods of adjustment at varying stages of vision loss. Through this process, many individuals with vision loss or blindness navigate changes in their lives, aiming to create a fulfilling life. Tonight, Janet will be presenting on Adjusting to Vision Loss, the Psychological Journey. Please join me in warmly welcoming our guest speaker, Janet, tonight. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm just going to, before I start, I just wanted to acknowledge that the PowerPoint slides that I'm using today is actually an extraction of some of the slides that I've used in a oral paper that I presented earlier in May this year at the Australian Psychological Society conference. For the presentation today, I will be focusing primarily on presentation associated to vision loss later in life instead of childhood diagnosis of vision condition. While many of the signs and symptoms in terms of adjusting to vision loss has similarities, but there are some unique differences for individuals who have and families who have children with a childhood diagnosis of vision condition. Now, before I start, let's have a look at what do we really mean when we think about vision loss. Often the primary loss is losing the ability to see, the ability to perceive visual cues or have inaccurate or the lack of perceived visual cues. That's the main concern often. If you think about it, vision is one of our 5 senses in our human body, but in our surrounding, from evolution, what happens is that vision has somehow tended to be used as the primary source of information for us to make sense of our world around us. Even for babies, how many times have you seen parents will be calling out to the baby, waving a little rattle while the rattle makes a sound and the mommy's voice makes a sound? But the movement of the rattle and the colors in the rattle is something that may attract the child. And as the child grows, they may see movement and they get excited and they are motivated to crawl towards that movement. And that's when they take their first step, the exciting moment when they take the first step. However, for someone who may not have that visual cue to notice a movement, it might actually impact their first steps, for example. And for an adult, if you think about it, how many times you go to a shop and you ask someone for something and they their response to you was, it is over there. Where is that over there? Is it a meter in front of you? Is it 5 meters in front of you? Or is it at the end of the shop? How big is the shop? Without visual information, you lose those kind of cues, and thus it makes it more challenging for you to be able to locate certain things. Now, while vision, in terms of the primary loss, losing the ability to see is the primary loss. The impact of vision impairment often ripples across the person's life. And many a times, the secondary impact of vision loss is often overlooked. It might include physical, social, or emotional impact, especially things related to mental health. So the journey of vision loss for everyone varies. And every week, I often use the word journey because it's not just at one point, and it is very much a journey as we walk alongside the client. And every single person's journey is slightly different. I wanted to show you an illustration of what a potential journey could look like. It's just one trajectory of someone with a vision loss, but every single person is slightly different. So let me just give you a little bit of an illustration. So if you think about the timeline across the arrow across being the timeline, and the graph with that line showing the emotional changes of the person. So if you notice at the very initial stage of diagnosis, often the emotions are quite a roller coaster because a lot of things are uncertain. For some people, it will be a shock because that's the first time that they have been informed that they have a vision condition where they have no history of vision condition, and that kind of shock often sends that emotional uncertainty. And many a times you see client asking for a second opinion. It can't be trying to negotiate that can't be the case. But eventually, as the vision deteriorates after diagnosis, they begin to feel a loss of productivity because they can't perform the duties in the same speed or the same accuracy as they used to, and this eats in their confidence. But for some clients, they are motivated to push themselves through, and they try to achieve a similar standard as they used to, but the reality eventually sits in. And they're beginning to feel that sense of loss in terms of their mobility, and that leads to a fear of their personal safety, and eventually the loss of independence. And over time, I see clients experiencing a loss of self-esteem. They don't know who they are anymore. And then eventually that loss of hopes and dreams. What does life mean to them? How are they to live and be the person they are when they don't even know who they are anymore? Now, reminding you that this is just one example. Many clients, every single client, their journey is different. Now, however, the journey doesn't have to look like that. It can have a very, very different trajectory if the right services are provided for the client at different points in time based on what they need. So the next slide here gives you a bit of an idea of what a potential trajectory could look like. So, for example, at the early stages of diagnosis, if psychological service is made available to the client, it really helps them address that uncertainty and that change, that sense of loss and grief, especially for one who have a vision loss later in life because they have lived all their life with vision. No one is prepared to lose their vision. even someone who has a family history of vision loss, no matter how much you know and prepare for it, it still does not prepare you for that moment when you experience that change or that deterioration in your vision. So psychological service at the very beginning can help the individual get through and manage that signs of grief and loss, and also moving towards acceptance and adjustment to the change. For some of our clients, they may have orthotics, they may engage in orthotic services to maximize the usage of their residual vision. As they move through, and if they lose more of their vision and they are struggling with mobility, we introduce orientation and mobility services that allows them to be able to independently travel from point A to point B, getting on out and about, doing things that they want to do. For some of the clients, they may choose to have a guide dog as their mobility aid. And often an introduction of a guide dog is a little bit of a high of emotion, because the guide dog is a living being, and having a living being traveling in that journey with you, in that partnership, means a lot to the client, not just as a mobility aid, but often is also a companion that goes with them, so that they don't feel that they're doing this all by themselves. For some of our clients, they're happy that they are able to go out and about doing the things that they like to do and they enjoy doing. However, for other clients, for them, they also want to feel that sense of independence, being able to do everything in the house just like anyone else. One of my clients' goals was to be able to cook dinner for her partner. She wanted to surprise her partner with a special dinner on their anniversary. So this is where occupational therapy may come in very handy to allow them to learn the skills. And some of them know how to cook. However, with reduced vision or no vision, the skills and strategies that you use to cook might be slightly different. But on top of that, there's also a lot of gadgets or devices that could be very handy that helps makes life a little bit easier. So assistive technology does come in terms of larger equipment that helps them, but also very much in terms of your everyday assistive technology. If you look around us every day in our life, we are connected. We are connected with our community through devices. Now, our clients want to be just like anyone else. If you have your phone beside you, many a times we have smartphone. You pick up the smartphone, there is no buttons whatsoever. How do they manage that? What do they do to be able to use those technology to be connected just like you and me? So that's where that service comes in really, really good for them to be able to manage, to be able to learn the strategy to do these things. And lastly, at Guide Dogs, we offer lifestyle and leisure services. It is a group program that is supported by individuals who understand vision, that allows them to be able to connect within a community and doing things that they enjoy. For example, we have clients who do mosaic artwork and clay work or woodwork, and in the ECA exhibition just passed in August, earlier in August, some of our clients' artwork has been displayed in ECA. So that gives them that sense of achievement and joy that they can still do some of these things. So let me just bring you back to the focus of today, which is psychological service. Where does psychological service focus on? Where is the importance why we're bringing in psychology at this point in time? So if you think about the person at the very beginning, when they receive that information that they have a vision condition, or if they've been informed that their vision has deteriorated to this point where they are now requiring additional aids. Or one of the biggest things for many of our clients is that the ophthalmologist informed them that they are no longer able to drive. He imagined driving is a major identity. Having a driving license is not just about a driving license. Your driving license is your proof of address, your proof of age card. It's a right that you have that, because not everyone has it. And that is part of their identity. So being at that moment when they were diagnosed with that, there's a lot of emotions that go through them. And a lot of times these are emotions that are associated to loss and grief. We're going through that, helping them learn skills to manage that symptoms of loss and grief, and eventually learning to accept and adjust to living with low or no vision. And we realize from research, what we're finding is that individuals who have better adjustment with was associated to greater acceptance of vision loss and the openness to receive services, which is required for adjustment. So for them to be able to progress into all the other areas, having the acceptance is so important. Now, from our practice, we found that the dual process model of coping with bereavement captures our therapeutic work with our clients as they travel through the journey of vision loss. The model describes the process of grief, often involving us swinging from loss-oriented mood to restoration-oriented mode of functioning. It means that grief is not a stationary or a step-by-step process, but rather it's a back and forth experience as the individual deals with the loss and the adjustment to change simultaneously over a period of time. To achieve this, it means that our engagement with the clients goes further than the initial stage. So coming back to our graph before, what does that mean? So your initial stage focuses on grief and loss, allows the individual to accept the loss. And with the acceptance of vision loss comes the acceptance of the other services needed for adjustment to live with low or no vision. Now, as I work with a multidisciplinary team, being a psychologist, I support the clients to grow in their confidence, to learn that new skill, because going through all the different services is quite challenging for them. So the clients then swing to the restoration-oriented mood. Now, this may often involve periods of depression, anxiety, and trauma, especially when they have more further eye surgery, for example, or a trigger of some of the anxiety-provoking situation, like they might have had a near-miss incident or something like that. So then these situations may pull them back to the loss-oriented mode. But as I work with them, we go back and forth in this between these two modes, learning to readjust their life, a different way of living, and eventually reshaping of the self is needed to truly accept and adjust to living with low vision or blindness. You see the clients gradually redefining the self, and this often includes understanding who they are now as a person. What is it that they need? How do I advocate for myself? And with that self redefined, they reconstruct the perception of who they are and what their function is in life and their purpose in life as they continue to become a contributing member of the society. And that is that journey. I go with the client along that process from the point of diagnosis, and as they learn the different skills that they need to adjust to living with low vision or blindness, and actually living the life in itself. However, the psychological impact is not an isolated incident at the point of the initial diagnosis itself. It's not a one-point thing. It's often a repeated occurrence as people journey through the rest of their life. If you imagine this line being the lifespan timeline of an individual, there are various periods of vulnerability. Just like you and me, our clients live a life that has ups and downs, just like anyone else. And on top of that up and down, like a typical everyday person, you need to then slap on top of that their journey through vision loss. So, for example, an individual might experience further deterioration in vision post-diagnosis. Guess what? When that happens, they go through that whole cycle all over again. They now have to accept that the vision is deteriorated and to adjust to it again. And they may also be experienced to various natural life stresses like relationship, career change, illness. Any of these could potentially lead to vision loss. And as you guessed it, they go through that journey all over again. And then as we age, the natural health of our eyes age as well. It's not meant to last forever. The natural aging can also impact eye health and the vision deterioration in addition to the pre-existing eye condition. And you've guessed it again, they go through that whole process all over again, in addition to all of that loss associated to aging. So you can imagine, in terms of a person going through that journey from the first point of diagnosis, as they go through their lifespan, there are many junctures in life where they might be impacted by the changes in their vision, and that whole adjustment period starts all over again. So it's a long-term journey that we do go with our clients. They're not with us all the time, but they come in and out as when it is needed. Thank you. I hope that this presentation has been interesting for you.
Thank you so much, Janet. That was really interesting. And it's great to see how much of an impact psychological services have on individuals that are undertaking all those services, and the uptake of the services as a result of the psychological services that you offer. So a person can live an independent life, or as independent as possible. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That was really good. We have some questions tonight, so if you don't mind answering some of those from our wonderful audience. The first question is, why do many people with glaucoma feel anxious or low after their diagnosis? And is this a normal reaction?
Absolutely normal. If you think about it, no one is prepared. No one is born and prepared to have a vision impairment later in life, right? And vision impairment can appear at any point in life. So that point of diagnosis often impacts them because there's this uncertainty. They don't know what's going to be happening. They are not even certain whether it's going to deteriorate further or maintain the same. So that uncertainty is a natural reaction in our body to react in that way. It is a natural process to keep us as human beings safe. So it is normal to feel that, but it is temporary. It's not something that is going to be there forever. The key is getting to know it, learning your symptoms, learning skills and strategies to live the life that you want.
Wonderful answer. Thank you. I think a lot of our patients actually feel that anxiety and not feeling sure about the diagnosis. So it's a great explanation. Thank you. Question 2. What practical strategies can help people with glaucoma maintain a positive outlook and independence as their sight changes? That's a good question
I think
too.
the most important thing is to make sure that you are keeping up with your medicals, so your ophthalmologist, your optometrist, making sure that you're keeping the health of your eye as best as possible, because often if we don't look after the health of the eye, then eventually the vision is going to deteriorate further. But as you're doing that, don't let the vision impairment define you. You are still you. Like, for example, for us, you don't go walk around and explaining, oh, I'm Janet, I have 2 arms and 2 legs. I'm Janet. You are still that person. And for each and every one of you, you are still the person that you are. Vision impairment doesn't define you. Living in that moment, that present moment of who you are, and doing what you want to do. Often I tell my clients that you can do most of the thing that you want to do. I never promise them everything because I know we are not there yet. I can't promise that they can drive a car, but one day down the track, you will have driverless car and they can by all means own their own car and jobs and stuff. But we're not there yet. So for the moment, it's very much about being in the present moment, doing things that you want to do. And they often find a way, just a slightly different way, and you can still do what you want to do.
Really good. That's really good. Yeah. Try not to lose yourself in your vision loss and your diagnosis. You're right. Very good. Question number 3. This is a really good one, actually. So how can patients communicate their vision loss to family and friends so let their loved ones better understand their experience? I think this is a really important one, because how do our patients relay that to their families so they can better understand what they're going through?
So I find vision loss is really hard because a lot of times with many of the vision condition like glaucoma is invisible. You can't see it. When they look at your eyes every day, your eyes look perfect, just like I've seen you 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it is different. And every day could also be different. And sometimes it's very difficult for family members to understand that today's lighting is not great, and hence why I could see something yesterday that I can't see today. And those conversations really, really hard for them to understand because they have not experienced what you have seen. So I often encourage my clients to have the conversation with their family, but also involve your care team. So it could be your ophthalmologist, your optometrist, or if you do receive services from any of the vision organization like guide dogs, I will get my orientation and mobility specialists going out, having those conversations with our clients. Sometimes we do a little bit of a simulation with the clients. So I have done sessions with families where I put on a goggles that will replicate the client's vision as best as possible. And then under the guidance of the specialists, we get the family members to do some of the everyday things to allow them to experience just for the glimpse at that moment what it feels like. Now, it's never ever going to be, like the magic pill. There's no magic pill because for them, after the experience, they can just take out the goggles and they see again. And they forget. So it's repeated sometimes, but it's a start of the conversation. And it is all about conversations.
Yeah.
And support groups that you can link them in as well, so that gives them that information. So that it's not just coming from you as the person going through that journey. Don't feel that you're the only one. There are many people that can walk this journey with you. So you're not walking the journey by yourself.
Mm, mm. Great. That's a great answer. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the fact that our patients live with this condition or our clients live with this condition every day, all day, day in, day out, and can't take it off like the family that we showed them what it's like is really important, yeah, to understand. Question 4, is seeing a psychologist something everyone with glaucoma should consider, or only if they're really struggling?
Everyone is slightly different. As I mentioned in my presentation, everyone's journey is slightly different. And every individual is different in terms of how well they are able to cope with the situation as well. For some clients, the trauma is quite significant, and having a psychologist will be very helpful to walk with them in that journey. However, for some of my other clients, they have a good support network, their family or their friends surrounding them. I read somewhere where they say friends are better than any therapist you can have, which is true, because if you have a good support network who understands you, who sees you being you and not just you with a diagnosis of vision impairment, they are always going to be able to walk that journey with you as well.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
Okay, that's great. Question 5. Sometimes I feel frustrated that my eye doctor doesn't explain things clearly and I end up searching online, but it makes me more anxious. This is a very common one. So, Dr. Google
Yes.
is usually asked to answer some questions. So, what's a better way to handle this, Janet?
Now, often when you go to the ophthalmologist or the optometrist, what happens is that they do want to give you the right information. However, at that point during the consultation, you might be too nervous to even receive all of those information. Sometimes it's good to be able to ask the doctors if they could have any handout, because getting the right information is so important. While Dr. Google has a lot of answers, but not all of the answers are reliable and not all of the answers are correct. So making sure that you're actually accessing information that are accurate. So getting the right information from your doctors are always, or any of your care team, your team that supports you through this journey, is always really important. They would give you the right information. But if you're not able to get the right get those resources from them, go to websites which are specialist websites, like, for example, Glaucoma Australia. Then you're getting reliable information that are suitable for your specific vision condition. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important to note because there's a
Mm.
lot of unreliable information out there and people writing anything. So the fact that it's, a reliable source that you're receiving your information from is really important in that aspect. So that's, really good answer. One last question is from Abdul. Are these services covered partly or completely by Medicare or health insurance? So I believe he's referring to your psychology services.
Yeah, so Medicare does have a mental health care plan that you can access. So if you go to your GP can write you a referral for a mental health care plan. A mental health care plan will typically give you 10 consultations with a psychologist over a period of 12 months. And it is after the 12 months, then it cycles back again. You can get another 10 consultations. So have the conversation with your doctor. It is often covered by Medicare. And in some of the healthcare, like insurance, they cover psychology as well. So just make sure that you check what does your insurance cover.
Okay, wonderful. And one more question has just come in from Eating Japanet. What stage of glaucoma are these services being offered?
So I can only speak to guide dogs, Queensland. We receive any client who has a diagnosis with a vision condition. So often the clients that will come through our door are clients who has a condition that they are likely going to have that vision loss throughout their life. So if someone who has cataract and is pending a cataract operation, and after the cataract operation, their sight restores to a typical sight, they're unlikely to access our services. But if you have a condition that's not going to change, then by all means, drop us an email or give us a call, or go to the website. The service is there for you. So we do not have a threshold of, what level of vision loss. As long as you have a vision loss, the service is there for you. We advocate for earlier, for prevention and actually learning skills and strategies earlier rather than later, because it allows you time to get yourself ready. If you know that there is a potential for deterioration, learning the skills earlier, you can get used to it and you can take your time to do that. So earlier is always better. There's never a wasted moment when it comes to learning skills.
100%. I think, that also goes for support services, not just psychology services, but support services like ours. Earlier intervention and knowledge about your eye condition and possible treatments and outlooks are always so important, so the patient is aware of what's ahead and feels less anxious perhaps. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Sometimes it's just about the knowledge, knowing that where you can get the knowledge, and knowing the knowledge gives you the certainty in your mind that it's okay. If something happens, I know where I need to go to. It's just like, you learn swimming not when you're drowning. You learn first aid not when you actually need it. You learn it ahead in time, and when the moment comes, you have it ready at your fingertips.
That's right. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you, Janet. So in the essence of time, these are all the questions that we're able to answer for you tonight during Janet's presentation. If you didn't get an opportunity to have your question answered, please feel free to direct any questions to glaucoma@glaucoma.org.au, or you can phone us on 1800 500 880, and we will endeavour to answer any questions as quickly as possible. Glaucoma Australia has 3 patient educators on staff, Loretto, Val and myself, and we welcome not only tonight's questions on Janet's topic, but also any questions that might arise on your own glaucoma journey. Again, we would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Janet Cheong, for her contribution to our webinar series and for her wonderful presentation tonight. Wishing our wonderful audience as well a pleasant evening, and we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.